When billionaire Roman Devereaux looks Imani Rhodes in the eye and says, "You're mine," her life as a quiet server in Miami's elite circles erupts into secrets, power plays, and an unforgettable past neither of them saw coming. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The Miami sunset painted the sky orange and pink as Imani Rhodes adjusted her black uniform one last time in the employee restroom mirror. At 26, she was one of the most requested servers at elite occasions, the premier catering service for Miami's ultra-wealthy. Not that anyone ever remembered her name. "Remember, ladies, we're invisible tonight," Mrs. Patel, the event supervisor, reminded the staff lined up for inspection. "The Devereaux Group doesn't pay us to be seen or heard. They pay us to make everything perfect without anyone noticing we exist." Imani nodded, her face carefully blank. 8 years of serving the rich had taught her the rules. Eyes down, hands steady. Speak only when spoken to. Be a shadow in expensive rooms. "Imani, you're on the head table tonight," Mrs. Patel said, handing her a floor plan. "Mr. Devereaux himself will be seated there with his most important guests. Not a single mistake, understand?" "Yes, ma'am," Imani replied, her stomach tightening. Roman Devereaux wasn't just another rich client. He owned half of Miami's luxury hotels and had a reputation for perfection that made even the most experienced servers nervous. As Imani headed to the service elevator of the Ocean Heights Hotel, she thought about the double shift waiting for her tomorrow. Her younger cousin Tasha's college tuition payment was due next week, and they were still short $300. Since Tasha had come to live with her 3 years ago after Aunt Louise passed, Imani had promised herself the girl would get the education she deserved. The elevator doors opened to reveal the rooftop venue, transformed into a garden of white orchids and crystal for tonight's charity gala. 50 tables draped in white silk, each setting worth more than Imani's monthly rent. "Focus," she whispered to herself. "Just get through tonight." The guests arrived in waves of designer dresses and custom suits, air kisses and practiced laughter. Imani moved between them with practiced grace, tray balanced perfectly, face a pleasant mask. And then he arrived. Roman Devereaux entered the room, and everyone noticed. 6 feet tall with shoulders that filled out his black tuxedo perfectly, skin the color of aged whiskey, and eyes that seemed to see through people rather than at them. At 31, he was already legendary in Miami's business world, the hotel king with the Midas touch and ice in his veins. Unlike the other guests who traveled in chattering groups, he moved alone, nodding occasionally to acquaintances, but never stopping. His face revealed nothing, no smile, no frown, just dangerous composure that made people step aside. Imani watched from the corner where she was arranging wine glasses. There was something almost sad about him, she thought. All that power, all that money, and he looked like the loneliest man in the room. The dinner service began smoothly. Imani moved around the head table with practiced efficiency, invisible as required. Roman sat at the center, listening more than talking, his glass of water untouched. During the third course, Imani approached with the wine. Starting at the far end of the table, she refilled each crystal glass with practiced precision. When she reached Roman, she kept her eyes lowered, focusing on pouring the deep red liquid without a drop spilled. "You're very good at that," a deep voice said. Imani's hand almost faltered. Guests rarely spoke directly to servers. She looked up automatically and found herself locked in Roman Devereaux's gaze. His eyes were dark, intense, studying her face with an interest that felt strangely personal. "Thank you, sir," she replied quietly, ready to move on, but he didn't look away. Instead, his eyes narrowed slightly as if trying to place her. The conversation around the table continued, but for Imani, the room seemed to quiet. "Have we met before?" he asked, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "No, sir," Imani answered, discomfort creeping up her spine. "I don't believe so." Something changed in his expression then, a flash of certainty, of recognition. You're mine," he said, the words firm and clear. Imani's tray shook slightly. The crystal glasses clinked against each other. The room seemed to freeze around them. "Excuse me?" she managed. Sure, she had misheard. His gaze didn't waver. No smile, no wink, no indication he was joking or flirting. Just those 3 words hanging in the air between them. "Is everything all right?" asked the woman seated beside him, a blonde in diamonds who looked annoyed at the interruption. Roman turned to her, his face instantly rearranging into polite interest. "Perfect, Catherine. I was just complimenting the service." Imani stepped back, heart pounding. What had just happened? "You're mine." The words echoed in her head as she retreated to the service area, hands trembling slightly. "You okay?" Jasmine, another server, whispered. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," Imani said, straightening her uniform. "Just tired." For the rest of the night, she felt his eyes following her. Whenever she approached his table, he watched her with that same intense look, not leering or objectifying but seeing. It was unsettling. Rich men had hit on her before. Some were crude, some thought they were charming. Imani had learned to deflect their attention with professional politeness, but this wasn't flirtation. This was something else. As the event wound down, Mrs. Patel gathered the staff for final instructions. "Mr. Devereaux has requested a list of tonight's servers," she announced, looking pleased. Apparently, he was very impressed with the service. This could mean more contracts with the Devereaux group. So well done, everyone. Imani felt a chill. A list of servers. Would he be looking for her name? Later, as she waited for the bus at the stop 2 blocks from the hotel, a sleek black car pulled up beside her. The window rolled down to reveal Roman Devereaux in the back seat. "Can I offer you a ride home?" he asked, his voice as composed as it had been at dinner. Imani gripped her bag tighter. "No, thank you. My bus will be here soon. It's after midnight. The buses run every hour now." He was right. And the thought of waiting alone at the bus stop for 40 more minutes wasn't appealing. Still, getting into a car with a stranger, especially one who had said something so bizarre to her, seemed worse. "I appreciate the offer, but I'll wait," she said firmly. Something like respect flickered in his eyes. "As you wish." He handed her a business card. "When you change your mind, call this number. Anytime. Not if. When." The window rolled up, and the car pulled away, leaving Imani staring at the heavy cream cardstock in her hand. It had only his name and a phone number, no title or company logo. The bus arrived 20 minutes later. As Imani sat watching the glittering hotels and condos of Miami slide past, she thought about throwing the card away. Whatever game Roman Devereaux was playing, she wanted no part of it, but she didn't throw it away. Instead, she tucked it into her wallet, telling herself she was just being practical. You never knew when knowing someone powerful might come in handy. The apartment was dark when she got home, but a small light shone from under Tasha's door. Imani knocked softly. "Still up?" she asked, finding her cousin surrounded by textbooks on her bed. Tasha looked up, her round face tired but determined. At 19, she was everything Imani had fought to protect. Smart, ambitious, and still believing life could be fair. "Big test tomorrow," Tasha explained. "How was the rich people party?" Imani shrugged, not mentioning Roman. "Same as always." But the tips were good. She pulled out an envelope and counted out several bills. "This should cover the rest of your tuition payment." Tasha's eyes widened. "That much? Did someone hit the lottery?" "Just a good night," Imani said, not mentioning that her own share of groceries would have to wait this week. After saying goodnight, Imani went to her small bedroom and changed out of her uniform. As she hung it up for tomorrow's shift, her phone dinged with a text message. "Unknown number. I hope you arrived home safely." Imani stared at the screen. How had he gotten her number? She didn't respond, but sleep was long in coming that night. The next day at Elite Occasion's office, Mrs. Patel called Imani into her small office. "I have a special request for you," she said, looking both puzzled and impressed. "Mr. Devereaux has specifically asked for you to serve at his private dinner tomorrow night." Imani's mouth went dry. "Me? By name?" Mrs. Patel nodded. "It's quite unusual. He's hosting a small group of investors at his penthouse. Very exclusive. The fee he's offering is..." She named a figure that made Imani blink. "That's too much for one server," Imani said automatically. "That's what I told him. He said, and I quote, 'Her service was exceptional. I want the best.'" Mrs. Patel studied Imani curiously. "Did you two know each other before?" "No," Imani said firmly. "I'd never met him before last night." "Well, you made quite an impression. This could be very good for your career, Imani. Mr. Devereaux's connections in this city are unmatched." Imani wanted to refuse. Something about his intensity, about those 3 words, "you're mine," had unsettled her. But the money was impossible to turn down. It would cover Tasha's books for the semester, and maybe even allow Imani to cut back on a few shifts. "I'll do it," she said finally. The next evening found Imani in the private elevator to the penthouse of the Monarch, Roman's flagship hotel. Her uniform was pressed perfectly, her curly hair pulled back into a neat bun, her expression professional. Whatever game he was playing, she would remain coolly competent. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse, a stunning space of glass and warm wood, with views of the ocean that stole her breath. A staff of 3 was already setting up in the kitchen area. "You must be Imani," said a middle-aged woman who introduced herself as Mrs. Hernandez, Roman's housekeeper. "Mr. Devereaux said you'd be handling his table personally. The guests will arrive in 30 minutes. Imani nodded and began familiarizing herself with the layout. The dining table was set for 6, each place setting a work of art in crystal and silver. She was arranging the wine glasses when she sensed someone watching her. Turning, she found Roman standing in the doorway to what must be his home office. He'd changed from his business suit into dark trousers and a white shirt, open at the collar. The casual look somehow made him more intimidating, not less. "Good evening," she said professionally. "Thank you for coming," he replied, walking toward her with that same controlled grace. "I wasn't sure you would." "It's my job, Mr. Devereaux." A hint of a smile touched his lips. "Roman, please. I prefer to keep things professional, sir." He studied her face for a moment. "As you wish, Ms. Rhodes." The way he said her name sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. She turned back to the glasses, aware of him still watching her. "Have you worked for elite occasions long?" he asked. 3 years, she answered, keeping her tone polite but distant. "And before that?" Imani glanced at him, surprised by the personal question. "I don't see how that's relevant to tonight's service, sir." Again, that flicker of respect in his eyes. "You're right, forgive my intrusion." The arrival of the first guest ended their conversation to Imani's relief. She fell into the familiar rhythm of service, moving efficiently around the table as Roman and his 5 guests, all men in expensive suits, discussed investment opportunities in the Miami hotel market. Throughout dinner, she felt Roman's eyes on her, though whenever she looked his way, he was engaged with his guests. Once, when she leaned between him and a guest to pour wine, she caught a hint of his cologne, something subtle and expensive that reminded her of cedar. As the evening progressed, Imani noticed something curious. For all his wealth and power, Roman seemed oddly detached from the conversation around him. He spoke when necessary, asked the right questions, but there was a reserve to him that the others lacked. They laughed too loudly, drank too much, boasted about their wives and mistresses. Roman did none of these things. After dessert, the men moved to the terrace with cigars and cognac. Imani began clearing the table when one of the guests, a red-faced man in his 50s, returned for his forgotten phone. "Well, aren't you a pretty one?" he said, his eyes traveling over Imani in a way that made her skin crawl. "Devereaux always has the best of everything." Imani kept her face neutral. "Can I help you find something, sir?" He moved closer, alcohol heavy on his breath. "Maybe you can. How about a private after-party when you're done here? I've got a suite downstairs." "I'm just the server, sir," she said, stepping back. He laughed. "Come on, honey, we both know these jobs come with benefits." His hand reached for her waist. "I'll make it worth your—" "Thomas." Roman's voice cut through the room like ice. He stood in the terrace doorway, his face expressionless but his eyes dark with anger. "Your wife is on the phone. Something about your daughter's recital tonight." The man dropped his hand immediately, face paling. "I should take that." "You should," Roman agreed, his tone pleasant but his meaning clear. "And then you should leave. Your driver is waiting." After the man hurried out, Roman turned to Imani. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," she said automatically. "It happens sometimes." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "Not here, not with you." The intensity of his response surprised her. Before she could reply, Mrs. Hernandez appeared to announce that the other guests were ready to leave. Roman nodded. "I'll be right there." To Imani, he added, "Please wait, I'd like to speak with you before you go." 20 minutes later, the apartment was quiet. Imani had finished cleaning up and was waiting by the elevator, her bag in hand. The other staff had already left. Roman walked toward her, his face unreadable. "Thank you for tonight, your service was impeccable." "Thank you for the opportunity," she replied formally. He studied her for a moment. "Thomas Martin won't bother you again, or anyone at elite occasions." Imani raised an eyebrow. "You didn't need to do that." "I did, actually." Something shifted in his expression, a hint of genuine emotion breaking through that composed exterior. No one should be treated as less than they are. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. For a moment, he didn't seem like a billionaire playing games. He seemed like a man who understood what it meant to be seen as invisible. "Why did you ask for me specifically?" she asked suddenly. He didn't pretend to misunderstand. "Because you're exceptional at what you do. Because when you serve, you do it with dignity, not subservience. And because—" He paused, seeming to reconsider his words. "Because I wanted to see you again." Why? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Something like pain flickered across his face. I wish I could explain it properly, but I'm not sure you'd believe me yet. Yet. As if there would be more conversations like this. Mr. Devereux. Roman, he corrected gently. Roman, she conceded. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not available for whatever this is. He actually looked surprised. You think I'm propositioning you? Aren't you? She challenged. No. The word was firm, almost angry. That's not who I am, and that's not who you are to me. The elevator arrived with a soft ding. Imani stepped inside, confused by the conversation and by her own conflicted feelings. Then what did you mean? She asked as the doors began to close. When you said you're mine, Roman put his hand out to stop the doors. For the first time, his composed mask slipped completely, revealing something raw and honest beneath. I meant that I know you, he said quietly. Not from a file or a resume, not as a server or an employee. I know you, Imani Rhodes. And I've been looking for you for a very long time. The doors closed on his words, leaving Imani staring at her own reflection in the mirrored elevator walls, her heart pounding with questions she couldn't begin to answer. On the table at home, she found an envelope Mrs. Hernandez must have slipped into her bag. Inside was her payment for the night, double the already generous amount Mrs. Patel had mentioned, and a handwritten note. The service was exceptional, but your dignity was priceless. R.D. Imani sat on her worn couch, the note in her hand, wondering what game Roman Devereux was playing, and why, despite her better judgment, she found herself curious to discover the next move. That night she dreamed of dark eyes that saw through her careful masks, and 3 words that shook her world: you're mine. A week passed without any word from Roman Devereux. Imani tried to convince herself she was relieved. Whatever strange connection he thought they shared, whatever game he was playing, it was better left alone. She had real problems to focus on, like the notice from her landlord announcing a rent increase starting next month. They can't just raise it by that much, Tasha said, staring at the paper over breakfast. That's almost $200 more. Imani sipped her coffee, hiding her worry. It's legal if they give 30 days notice. And this building got bought by new owners last month. So we move, Tasha said simply. Find somewhere cheaper. With what deposit? Imani asked gently. Moving costs money we don't have right now. Tasha's face fell. I could drop a class, work more hours at the campus bookstore. No, Imani's voice was firm. You're not sacrificing your education. I'll figure something out. After Tasha left for class, Imani called Mrs. Patel to ask for extra shifts. The timing was perfect. Elite Occasions had just landed a major contract for a week-long conference at the Monarch Hotel, the Devereux Group's flagship property. Is that going to be a problem? Mrs. Patel asked carefully. Working at Mr. Devereux's hotel? Imani's grip tightened on her phone. Why would it be? Well, after he specifically requested you for his private dinner, I thought perhaps something unprofessional had occurred. Nothing happened, Imani said firmly. And I need the hours. Mrs. Patel sounded relieved. Good. Be at the Monarch tomorrow at 6 a.m. It's a breakfast service for 200 executives. The Monarch was even more impressive in daylight. 60 floors of gleaming glass and steel with an 8-story waterfall in the main lobby. Imani arrived early, changed into her uniform in the staff area, and reported to the event manager. The morning went smoothly. Imani was stationed at the omelette station, working alongside the hotel's chef. The executives barely looked at her as she prepared their breakfasts, which was exactly how she preferred it. Ms. Rhodes. The voice made her freeze. She looked up to find Roman standing on the other side of the table, dressed in a perfectly tailored navy suit. Unlike the other executives who moved through the line checking emails on their phones, his focus was entirely on her. Mr. Devereux, she acknowledged, keeping her voice professional. Omelette? A hint of amusement touched his eyes. Please, egg whites only. As she prepared his breakfast, she felt his gaze on her face. I didn't know you'd be working here today, he said quietly. Last-minute assignment, she replied, adding vegetables to the pan. I see. He paused. Did you receive the payment for last week's dinner? Yes. It was too generous. It was appropriate for the level of service. He accepted the plate she handed him. Will you be here all week for the conference? Yes, sir. Something like satisfaction crossed his face. Good. He lingered a moment longer than necessary. Thank you, Imani. The way he said her name, soft, almost intimate, sent an unexpected warmth through her. She watched him walk away, commanding the attention of everyone in the room without even trying. "So that's the famous Roman Devereux," said the chef beside her. "They say he built all this from nothing, started with one rundown motel and turned it into an empire. Is that true?" Imani asked, curious despite herself. "Who knows? The rich always create myths about themselves. Makes their money seem more deserved somehow." Throughout the day, Imani caught glimpses of Roman moving through the conference. Unlike the other executives who traveled in packs, laughing loudly and slapping backs, he moved with solitary purpose. People approached him, not the other way around. "He's not what I expected," Jasmine commented during their break. "Most of these hotel guys are all fake smiles and cheesy lines. He's so intense." "He's just a client," Imani said firmly, more to herself than to Jasmine. "A client who can't keep his eyes off you," Jasmine replied with a knowing smile. "I saw him watching you earlier, not in a creepy way, more like he was trying to figure you out." Imani changed the subject, but Jasmine's words stayed with her. The next day, Imani was assigned to the executive luncheon in one of the smaller ballrooms. As she arranged place settings, she noticed a name card at the head table, Roman Devereux. She positioned his water glass perfectly, telling herself she was just being professional. The luncheon was halfway through when disaster struck. A guest at Roman's table gestured too emphatically while speaking, knocking over a full glass of red wine. The liquid spread across the white tablecloth toward Roman's lap. Imani reacted instantly, stepping in with napkins to block the flow. In her haste, she bumped the table, sending a fork clattering to the floor. The conversation stopped. All eyes turned to her. "I'm so sorry, sir," she said automatically, mortified by her clumsiness. The guest, a woman in an expensive red suit, looked at her with cold disdain. Really the help these days, no sense of propriety. Imani kept her face blank as she sopped up the spill and replaced the tablecloth section with practiced efficiency. The woman continued to complain loudly about unprofessional service, while Imani worked silently, her cheeks burning with humiliation. "Perhaps if you had controlled your gestures, the accident wouldn't have happened at all, Caroline." Roman's cool voice cut through the woman's complaints. Ms. Rhodes handled the situation perfectly. The woman's mouth snapped shut. Imani glanced up in surprise to find Roman watching her, with something like admiration in his eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Devereux," she said quietly. His only response was a slight nod, but it felt like so much more. Later that afternoon, Mrs. Patel called Imani into the makeshift office Elite Occasions had set up at the hotel. "We have a problem," she said, her expression grave. "Mrs. Caroline Whitmore has filed a formal complaint against you. She claims you were rude and spilled wine on her deliberately." "That's not true," Imani protested. "She spilled it herself. I was just cleaning it up." Mrs. Patel sighed. "I believe you, but Mrs. Whitmore is on the board of 3 charities that use our services regularly. She's demanding you be removed from the conference immediately." Imani felt the blood drain from her face. "Are you firing me?" "Not firing, just reassigning. You'll work at the Peterson wedding this weekend instead." Mrs. Patel looked genuinely regretful. "I'm sorry, Imani. Sometimes we have to make these concessions to keep the bigger clients happy." Imani nodded numbly. The Peterson wedding was a much smaller event with lower tips. The lost income from the conference would make the new rent increase impossible to manage. "I understand," she said, her voice hollow. "When should I leave?" "Now would be best, before the dinner service." Imani changed out of her uniform in the staff bathroom, fighting back tears of frustration. It wasn't fair, but nothing in her life ever had been. Why had she expected this to be different? As she headed for the service exit, a familiar voice called her name. She turned to find Mrs. Hernandez, Roman's housekeeper, hurrying toward her. "Mr. Devereux would like to see you in his office," she said. "Immediately." Imani hesitated. "I'm not working the event anymore. He's aware of that. Please, come with me." Curiosity overcoming her better judgment, Imani followed Mrs. Hernandez to a private elevator that required a key card. They rode in silence to the 60th floor, the executive level. Roman's office suite took up half the floor, a vast space of glass and mahogany with views of the ocean. He was standing at the window when they entered, his back to the door, phone pressed to his ear. "No, that's not acceptable," he was saying, his voice cold and firm. "The contract was clear. I don't care what your legal team thinks they found." "Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying." He ended the call and turned, his expression softening slightly when he saw Imani. "Thank you for coming up," he said. "Please sit down." Imani remained standing. Mrs. Patel said I needed to leave right away. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. Did she? Interesting, considering I just spoke with the head of Elite Occasions, who assured me you would remain on the conference team. Imani blinked in confusion. But Mrs. Whitmore's complaint has been dismissed, Roman finished. Caroline likes to throw her weight around, but she doesn't own this hotel, I do. He walked to his desk and picked up a folder. I reviewed the security footage of the incident. It clearly shows her knocking over her own glass and you responding professionally. I've sent a copy to Elite Occasions with a note expressing my complete satisfaction with your service. Imani stared at him, stunned. You did that for me. I did it because it was right, he said simply. You didn't deserve to lose income because someone with influence lied. The casual way he mentioned reviewing security footage reminded Imani of just how powerful this man was. He probably had cameras everywhere, staff reporting to him about everything that happened in his hotel. Why do you care? She asked bluntly. Roman's expression became unreadable. Because I know what it's like when no one stands up for you. Something in his tone made Imani believe him, despite her suspicions. For all his wealth and power, there was an edge of old pain in his voice that rang true. I should get back to work, she said, uncomfortable with the moment of connection. Of course. He handed her a room key card. The service elevator requires this after 6 p.m. The regular staff entrance will be locked for the evening reception. Their fingers brushed as she took the card, sending an unexpected jolt through her body. His eyes darkened slightly, suggesting he'd felt it too. Thank you, she said, stepping back quickly, for intervening with Mrs. Whitmore. Imani, he said as she turned to leave, she's not the last person who will try to make you feel small. Don't let them succeed. The next 3 days passed in a blur of work. Imani saw Roman occasionally during the conference events, always surrounded by people seeking his attention. Sometimes their eyes would meet across the room, and he would give her a slight nod, an acknowledgement that felt strangely intimate in the crowded space. On Friday, the final day of the conference, Imani was helping set up for the farewell reception when Mrs. Patel approached her looking worried. Imani, we need to talk, she said, leading her to a quiet corner. Caroline Whitmore has escalated her complaint. She's now saying you stole her diamond bracelet during the luncheon on Tuesday. Imani felt like she'd been slapped. What? That's insane. I never touched her jewelry. I know that, Mrs. Patel said quickly, but she's threatening to press charges. The company can't afford this kind of scandal, Imani. We'd lose half our clients. The implication was clear. Imani would be sacrificed to protect the company. So I'm fired, she said flatly. Mrs. Patel couldn't meet her eyes. We're terminating your contract, effective immediately. I'm sorry, Imani. I fought for you, but the owners made the decision. Imani felt numb as she gathered her things from the staff area. 3 years of perfect service, and it meant nothing in the face of one rich woman's lies. Without this job, she'd have no way to cover the rent increase, no way to keep her promise to Tasha. As she walked toward the service exit, a security guard stepped in front of her. Ms. Rhodes, I need you to come with me, please. Her heart sank. Were they going to search her for a bracelet she'd never seen, much less stolen? What's this about, she asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. Mr. Devereux has requested your presence in the main conference room. Confused, Imani followed the guard back through the hotel to the grand ballroom where the farewell reception was being held. The room was filled with executives in dark suits, the men and women who had barely looked at her all week, as she served their food and cleared their plates. The guard led her to a side entrance, where Mrs. Hernandez was waiting. Mr. Devereux is about to make his closing remarks, she explained. He asked that you observe from here. Imani wanted to leave, to escape the humiliation of being fired and accused of theft. But curiosity kept her rooted in place, as Roman took the podium at the front of the room. He cut an impressive figure in a charcoal suit, his presence commanding instant silence from the crowd. Thank you all for attending the 10th Annual Hospitality Innovation Conference, he began, his deep voice carrying effortlessly through the room. Before we conclude, I want to address an incident that occurred earlier this week. Imani tensed. Was he going to publicly mention the wine spill? It has come to my attention, Roman continued, that one of our conference attendees has made serious allegations against a member of the serving staff. Specifically, Mrs. Caroline Whitmore has accused a server of theft. A murmur ran through the crowd. Imani saw Caroline Whitmore near the front, looking smug and self-satisfied. As the host of this conference and the owner of this hotel, I take such accusations very seriously, Roman said, which is why I personally reviewed our extensive security footage. He nodded to someone offstage, and suddenly the large screens around the room lit up with video footage. It showed Caroline Whitmore at the luncheon table, removing her bracelet and slipping it into her own purse before deliberately knocking over her wine glass. The room went deadly silent. All eyes turned to Caroline, whose face had gone white with shock. "Mrs. Whitmore," Roman continued, his voice now cold as ice, "not only did you falsely accuse an innocent employee of theft, but you attempted to use your social position to destroy her livelihood. That is not acceptable in my establishment." He turned to address the wider audience. "Everyone who works in this industry, from the CEO to the newest housekeeper, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. I will not tolerate anything less in my hotels." His eyes found Imani by the side entrance, and for a moment it felt like he was speaking directly to her. "Some people believe that those who serve are somehow less valuable than those being served," he said. "They are wrong. Character is revealed not by how we treat our equals, but by how we treat those we perceive as beneath us." Caroline Whitmore was now edging toward the exit, her face burning with humiliation. "Mrs. Whitmore," Roman called, stopping her retreat, "your membership in the Hospitality Association has been revoked, effective immediately, and I've taken the liberty of informing the boards of the charities you serve on about this incident." The woman fled the room, leaving a wake of whispers behind her. "Now," Roman said, his tone lightening, "let's end this conference on a more positive note. Please join me in the garden terrace for champagne." As the crowd began to move toward the terrace doors, Roman stepped down from the podium and walked directly to where Imani stood, still processing what had just happened. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. "Yes, I did," he replied. "She deserved to be exposed." "But why so publicly? You could have handled it privately." Something like anger flashed in his eyes. "Because people like Caroline Whitmore only learn when their actions have public consequences. And because everyone in that room needed to hear the message." Imani realized he was right. The other executives had witnessed not just Caroline's humiliation, but the power of Roman's principles. None of them would risk treating the staff poorly after this. "Elite occasions fired me," she said suddenly, "before your speech." Roman's jaw tightened. "Did they? That's disappointing. It doesn't matter now. No one will hire me after this drama, regardless of who was right." "I disagree," he said. "In fact, I've already spoken to Thomas Erickson at the Palmetto. He's looking for a new event coordinator, someone with hands-on experience who understands both sides of the business." Imani stared at him in shock. The Palmetto was one of Miami's most exclusive hotels, a direct competitor to the Monarch. "You're recommending me to your competition?" she asked incredulously. A hint of a smile touched his lips. "Thomas is an old friend, and you're qualified for the position." "I've never done anything but serve," she protested. "You've managed difficult clients, handled complex events, and shown exceptional grace under pressure. That's exactly what the job requires." His eyes held hers. "Unless you'd prefer to work here at the Monarch, I could arrange that instead." Imani felt dizzy with the sudden change in her fortunes. "Why are you doing this for me?" Roman was silent for a moment, his expression unreadable. "Because someone once did something similar for me, when I had nothing. And because you deserve better than what life has given you so far." Before she could respond, one of his executives approached, needing his attention. Roman excused himself, but not before adding, "The job at the Palmetto starts Monday if you want it. Mrs. Hernandez has all the details." Imani walked home in a daze, the events of the day swirling in her mind. By the time she reached her apartment, she had convinced herself that the job offer must be some kind of trick or trap. Men like Roman Devereux didn't help people like her without expecting something in return. Tasha was at the kitchen table when Imani entered, her face worried. "Where have you been? I got your text about being fired. What happened?" Imani sat down heavily, suddenly exhausted. "It's a long story, but I might have another job. A better one." "Really? Where?" "The Palmetto. As an event coordinator, not a server." Tasha's eyes widened. "That's amazing, but how?" "Roman Devereux recommended me," Imani admitted reluctantly. "The hotel guy? The one you served at that private dinner?" Tasha looked confused. "Why would he do that?" "I don't know," Imani said honestly. "He says it's because I deserve it, but no one gives something for nothing in this world." Tasha studied her cousin's face. "Maybe he likes you." "It's not like that," Imani insisted, though her cheeks warmed at the thought. "Then what is it like?" Tasha pressed. Imani shook her head. "I don't know. He's different." When he looks at me, it's like he's seeing something no one else does. Different how? He stood up for me when a client lied about me, publicly humiliated her to clear my name. And the way he talks sometimes, it's like he knows what it's like to be invisible. Tasha smiled. Sounds like you should find out more about this mysterious benefactor. I'm not sure I want to, Imani said softly. What if it's all some game? Rich men get bored. They play with people because they can. Or maybe, Tasha suggested gently, he's exactly what he seems. Someone who sees your worth and wants to help. Not everyone has an angle, Imani. But Imani had learned the hard way that most people did, especially men with power. The weekend passed quickly. Despite her misgivings, Imani called the number Mrs. Hernandez had given her and confirmed her interest in the position at the Palmetto. On Sunday evening, a courier delivered a package containing information about her new role and a company ID badge with her name on it. Monday morning found her standing outside the Palmetto Hotel, dressed in the best clothes she owned, a simple black dress and the one pair of heels she kept for special occasions. Taking a deep breath, she walked through the grand entrance, trying to project a confidence she didn't feel. Thomas Erickson, the general manager, greeted her warmly. He was a tall man in his 50s with kind eyes and a genuine smile. Imani, Roman told me you'd be perfect for us, and I never doubt his judgment. He led her through the hotel, explaining her duties. Basically, you'll be the bridge between our clients and our service team. You understand both worlds, which is rare and valuable. The position came with a salary that made Imani's head spin, nearly triple what she'd made at elite occasions, plus benefits, including tuition assistance that would help with Tasha's college expenses. Why me? She asked Thomas candidly during their tour. I have no management experience. Thomas's expression grew thoughtful. Roman was very specific about you. Said you had exceptional insight into people and understood true service better than anyone he'd met. He barely knows me, Imani protested. Maybe, but Roman has always had a knack for seeing people's potential. It's how he built his empire, finding overlooked talent and giving it room to grow. Thomas smiled. He did the same for me 20 years ago. What do you mean? I was a bellhop when I met Roman. He was just starting out, had bought his first motel down on River Street. Real dump, but he was determined to make something of it. I was the only staff member who showed up during a hurricane warning. Everyone else left, but I stayed to help him board up windows. Thomas's eyes grew distant with the memory. Next day, he made me assistant manager. Said anyone with that kind of loyalty deserved a chance to grow. Now I run his biggest competitor's flagship property. That's Roman. He builds people up, even if they eventually leave his orbit. The story didn't fit with Imani's image of a calculating billionaire playing games. It sounded like the actions of someone who understood struggle and valued hard work. Her first week at the Palmetto passed in a whirlwind of training and new responsibilities. Imani discovered she had a talent for event planning. Her years of anticipating guests' needs as a server translated perfectly to creating memorable experiences. Thomas was a patient mentor, guiding her through the complexities of hotel management while giving her room to develop her own style. There was no word from Roman during this time. Imani told herself she was relieved that whatever strange connection he thought they shared was better left unexplored. But sometimes, during quiet moments, she found herself remembering the intensity of his gaze, the way he said her name like it meant something special. On Friday evening, as Imani was preparing to leave, Thomas handed her an envelope. Special request, he said with a smile. Very high-profile client asking specifically for you to coordinate their event. Inside was a request for a private dinner in the Palmetto's exclusive rooftop garden. The client, Roman Devereux. He wants me to plan a dinner at his competitor's hotel? Imani asked, confused. Thomas chuckled. Roman does what Roman wants, always has. The question is, will you accept the assignment? Imani hesitated only briefly. Yes, I will. The request specified dinner for 2 on Sunday evening. No other guests, just Roman and his companion, whose identity wasn't specified. Imani spent Saturday planning every detail, determined to prove herself worthy of the opportunity Roman had created for her. She selected a menu featuring Caribbean-inspired dishes, chosen to complement the garden's lush tropical setting. She arranged for soft lighting, elegant but simple table settings, and a subtle jazz trio to provide background music. On Sunday evening, she arrived early to oversee the final preparations. The rooftop garden was transformed into an intimate paradise, with twinkling lights woven through the foliage and a table positioned to capture both privacy and the spectacular ocean view. At precisely 7 o'clock, the elevator doors opened and Roman stepped out, alone. He wore a light grey suit that emphasized his broad shoulders and the warm tone of his skin. His eyes found Imani immediately, warming with approval as he took in the setting she had created. "This is beautiful," he said, walking toward her. "You've exceeded my expectations." "Thank you," she replied, professional despite the flutter in her stomach. "Will your guest be arriving separately?" A hint of a smile touched his lips. "My guest is already here." Imani glanced around in confusion. "I don't—" "You, Imani," he said softly. "The dinner is for us." She stared at him, caught completely off guard. "I don't understand. It's simple. I wanted to talk with you, really talk, away from work dynamics and misunderstandings. I thought a neutral setting might help." He gestured to the table. "Will you have dinner with me? Just conversation, nothing more." Every instinct told Imani to refuse, to maintain the professional boundary between them, but the same curiosity that had led her to his office that day pushed her to nod her acceptance. "Just dinner," she agreed cautiously. Roman held her chair as she sat, then took the seat across from her. A server, one Imani had trained herself, appeared with champagne. "Two new beginnings," Roman said, raising his glass. Imani took a small sip, studying him over the rim of her flute. "Why did you really help me get this job?" He considered her question thoughtfully. "Because I recognized something in you that reminded me of myself once. Determination, pride, the refusal to be defined by circumstances." "You were a server too?" she asked skeptically. "No," a shadow crossed his face. "But I know what it's like to be invisible, to have people look through you instead of at you." The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. This didn't sound like practiced charm or rehearsed lines. "How?" she asked simply. Roman was quiet for a moment, swirling the champagne in his glass. "My father was wealthy, old Miami money. My mother was the housekeeper's daughter. Their relationship was brief. When she told him she was pregnant, he paid her to disappear." Imani's eyes widened. This wasn't the origin story she had expected from a billionaire. "She raised me alone in Liberty City," he continued. "Worked 3 jobs sometimes. Taught me that dignity was something no one could take unless you let them." "What happened to her?" Imani asked softly. Pain flashed across his face, raw and real. "Cancer. I was 17. After she died, I found my father. Thought maybe he'd help with college now that my mother wasn't in the picture." His laugh was bitter. "He had me thrown out by security, said his real children were at Harvard and Yale, and he didn't need a service entrance bastard embarrassing the family." Imani felt a surge of anger on his behalf. "I'm sorry." Roman shrugged, but the casual gesture couldn't hide the old hurt. "It was the best thing that could have happened to me. Made me determined to build something he couldn't ignore. I worked night shifts as a hotel valet, saved every penny, took business classes at community college during the day, eventually bought a foreclosed motel at auction, fixed it up room by room with my own hands." As dinner progressed, Roman told her about those early years, the struggle to get financing as a young man from the wrong side of town, the constant battle to be taken seriously in an industry dominated by old money. "Every bank turned me down," he said, "until one loan officer took a chance, said I had hungry eyes." Imani found herself relaxing as they talked, drawn in by the genuine passion in his voice when he spoke about building his first successful hotel. "Why hotels?" she asked. "Why not something else?" His expression softened. "Because hotels are places where service is honored, where making someone feel welcome, comfortable, respected, that's the highest calling. And because I understood what it meant to need shelter." As dessert arrived, Imani realized she had done most of the listening. Roman had revealed more of himself than she had expected, but had asked few questions about her. "You know a lot about me now," she said, "but you haven't asked about my life." That intense gaze fixed on her face. "I want to, but I sensed you needed to trust me first." His perception was unnerving. "How did you know that?" "Because trust doesn't come easily to either of us," he said simply. "Not when life has taught us to expect disappointment." The truth of his words resonated deep within her. For the first time, Imani considered the possibility that Roman Devereux might actually understand her in ways others never had. "I grew up in foster care," she said suddenly, surprising herself with the admission. "My mother died when I was 8. No father in the picture. No relatives who wanted the burden of raising someone else's child." Roman's expression remained neutral, but his eyes held genuine interest. No pity, no discomfort, just attention. The system isn't kind to quiet black girls who don't cause trouble, she continued. You become background noise, useful but unseen. When did you start taking care of your cousin? He asked. Imani blinked in surprise. How did you know about Tasha? You mentioned her once when you were serving at my penthouse. You said you couldn't stay late because your cousin had an exam the next day. The fact that he had remembered such a small detail made her pause. Tasha came to live with me 3 years ago, after her mother, my aunt, passed away. She was the only family member who ever kept in touch, sent birthday cards when I was in foster care. I couldn't let Tasha go through what I did. As the evening continued, Imani found herself sharing more than she had intended. Her dreams of someday opening a small catering business that would employ foster youth aging out of the system, her determination to see Tasha graduate college, her belief that service wasn't servitude but an honorable profession when done with dignity. You see it too, Roman said, leaning forward. The nobility in taking care of others, in anticipating needs before they're expressed. Yes, Imani agreed, surprised by his understanding, but it has to be reciprocal. The person being served has to recognize the humanity of the server. Exactly. His eyes held hers. That's what I've tried to build in my hotels, places where service goes both ways, where both the guest and the staff member feel valued. As the evening drew to a close, Roman walked her to the elevator. In the soft garden lighting, his face seemed younger, more open than the composed mask he wore in public. Thank you for dinner, Imani said, suddenly shy. And for the conversation. I've enjoyed it more than any evening in recent memory, he replied, his voice low and sincere. As the elevator arrived, he hesitated, then asked, Would you have dinner with me again? Next week? Imani knew she should refuse. Whatever was developing between them was complicated by their different worlds, their different positions. But the connection she felt with him was unlike anything she'd experienced before. Yes, she said simply, I would like that. His smile, a real one that reached his eyes, transformed his face. Good. As the elevator doors closed between them, Imani realized with a jolt that she was starting to see past Roman Devereux, billionaire hotel magnate, to the man beneath, a man who perhaps understood what it meant to be invisible better than anyone she had ever met. And that realization was both thrilling and terrifying. In the weeks that followed, Imani settled into her new role at the Palmetto with growing confidence. Her background in service gave her an edge in planning events. She anticipated problems before they arose and understood what truly mattered to guests. Thomas Erickson became both mentor and friend, guiding her through the complex world of luxury hotel management. You're a natural at this, he told her, after she successfully coordinated a high-profile charity gala. The clients are asking for you specifically now. Imani smiled, still adjusting to being valued for her mind rather than her ability to carry trays without being noticed. Her salary had already allowed her and Tasha to move to a safer apartment closer to campus, with enough space for them both to have their own bedrooms. For the first time in years, Imani didn't lie awake at night worrying about how to pay next month's bills. And then there was Roman. Their Sunday dinners had become a ritual, sometimes at the Palmetto, sometimes at small out-of-the-way restaurants where they wouldn't be recognized. They talked for hours about everything and nothing, books they'd read, places they wanted to travel, childhood memories both sweet and painful. Roman was different in these moments, away from the business world that demanded his cold precision. He laughed more easily, listened intently, revealed pieces of himself that Imani suspected few people ever saw. Why hotels? She asked him one evening, as they sat in a tiny Cuban restaurant in Little Havana. You could have chosen any business. Roman considered the question, stirring his coffee thoughtfully. When I was 16, my mother got sick. Really sick. We couldn't afford good care, and our apartment was falling apart. One night, it was raining inside from a leak in the ceiling. She was so weak from chemo. He paused, the memory clearly painful. I took her to a hotel, used every dollar I had saved, just for one night, so she could sleep in a clean, dry bed. The manager saw us, this skinny kid and his sick mother. I was sure he'd throw us out, think we were trouble. What happened? Imani asked softly. He upgraded us to a suite, sent up hot meals, never charged a penny more than the basic room I'd paid for. Roman's eyes met hers. That night taught me that a hotel isn't just a business. At its best, it's sanctuary. I wanted to create places where everyone feels that sense of dignity and care, whether they're paying thousands a night or working in the laundry room. Stories like this made it harder for Imani to maintain her emotional distance. The Roman she was coming to know was complicated, driven by demons from his past, but determined to build something meaningful with his power. Yet she still held back. Part of her waited for the catch, for the moment when his interest would wane or his true intentions would be revealed. Men with power wanted things. That was the way of the world. "You're still guarding yourself," he observed one night as he walked her to her door. "After all these weeks, you're still waiting for me to disappoint you." His perception was unsettling. "Can you blame me? Our worlds are very different, Roman, are they?" he asked quietly. "Or do we just wear different clothes while fighting the same battle?" Before she could answer, he leaned in and gently kissed her cheek. "Good night, Imani Rhodes. Think about what I said." That night, Imani found Tasha still awake. Textbooks spread across the kitchen table. "Another dinner with the mysterious Mr. Devereaux?" Tasha asked with a knowing smile. "When do I get to meet this man who's got you walking around with stars in your eyes?" "I don't have stars in my eyes," Imani protested, though her hand unconsciously went to the cheek Roman had kissed. Tasha laughed. "Please, you're practically glowing. So when's the official first date? Because these just dinner meetups are definitely something more." "It's complicated," Imani sighed, sinking into a chair. "He's not just rich, Tasha. He's in another universe of wealth and power. People like him don't end up with people like me." "Why not? You're smart, beautiful, and he obviously sees something special in you." Tasha closed her textbook. "What are you really afraid of?" The question cut to the heart of Imani's hesitation. "I'm afraid of believing in something that can't last. His world would never accept me as his equal, and I refuse to be anyone's charity project or secret indulgence." "Have you asked him how he feels? Or are you making decisions based on what you think he thinks?" Imani had no answer for that. The truth was, she was falling for Roman. His unexpected kindness, his quiet strength, the way he saw her completely, but fear held her back from admitting it even to herself. The next day at the Palmetto, Imani was reviewing event contracts when Thomas stopped by her office. "You've been requested for a very special assignment," he said, looking unusually serious. "The Devereaux Group is hosting their annual leadership retreat next month. Roman wants you to coordinate it." Imani frowned in confusion. "But I work for your hotel." His competitor. "Roman doesn't care about that. He wants the best, and he thinks that's you." Thomas handed her a file. "It's a 3-day event at his private estate in the Keys. Very exclusive. Just his top executives and board members." "I don't understand. Why would he want me there?" Thomas studied her face. "You really don't see it, do you? The man trusts you, Imani. That's rare for Roman. He keeps most people at a careful distance." Imani opened the file, scanning the details. The retreat would bring together the 20 most powerful people in Roman's empire, his inner circle, and he wanted her, a woman who'd been serving trays just months ago, to run it. "Will you accept?" Thomas asked. "Yes," she said after a moment. "I will." That evening, Imani received a text from Roman. "Can we meet tomorrow? There's something I want to show you." The next day, Roman picked her up in a sleek silver car that purred rather than roared. Unlike his usual business attire, he wore dark jeans and a simple white button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. The casual look suited him, making him seem more approachable, less like the intimidating businessman the world knew. "Where are we going?" Imani asked as they drove south, leaving Miami's glittering skyline behind. "Someplace important to me," he replied, a hint of nervousness in his voice that she'd never heard before. "I want you to see it before the retreat." They drove for nearly an hour, the urban landscape giving way to lush greenery. Finally, Roman turned onto a private road that wound through a dense canopy of trees, before opening to reveal a breathtaking vista of turquoise water. Her sprawling Mediterranean-style villa sat on a bluff overlooking the ocean, surrounded by flowering gardens and old-growth trees. Unlike the ultra-modern glass towers Roman's hotels were known for, this place had a timeless, organic quality, as if it had grown naturally from the landscape. "This is your estate?" Imani asked as they parked. "This is home," he corrected softly, "the only real one I've ever had." He led her through the house, spacious and elegant but surprisingly comfortable, with worn leather sofas and bookshelves filled with well-read volumes. No gleaming marble or sterile minimalism here. This was a place meant to be lived in, not just admired. "I bought this land 15 years ago," Roman explained as they walked onto a wide terrace overlooking the water. "It was the first thing I purchased after my second hotel started making real money. Just bare land then. Took me 5 years to build the house bit by bit as I could afford it." "It's beautiful," Imani said honestly. "Different from what I expected." "What did you expect?" Glass walls and security guards? He asked with a hint of amusement. Something more imposing, like your hotels. Roman shook his head. The hotels are for show. They're what the world expects from Roman Devereux, hotel magnate. This is for me. He gestured to a path leading down to a private beach. Come, there's more I want you to see. They walked in comfortable silence to the shore, where a simple wooden dock extended into the clear water. At the end of the dock stood a small table and 2 chairs, set for lunch. You planned this, Imani said, surprised by the thoughtful gesture. I wanted our first time here to be special. Roman held her chair, then took the seat across from her. The retreat will bring my entire leadership team to this property. It will be all business then, but today it's just us. As they ate the simple meal, fresh fish and vegetables prepared by Roman himself, he revealed, Imani felt the last of her guards beginning to crumble. This wasn't the calculating billionaire showing off his wealth. This was a man sharing something precious and personal. Why did you ask me to coordinate your retreat? She asked finally. You must have an entire staff who usually handles these things. Roman was quiet for a moment, watching a seabird dive into the water nearby. Because I trust you, he said simply, and because I want them to see you the way I do. And how is that? His eyes met hers, intense and honest. As exceptional, as someone who understands true service, not subservience but the art of making others feel valued, as someone who sees me, not just what I own. The admission hung between them, weighted with meaning beyond the words themselves. The retreat is important, he continued. These 3 days set the tone for my entire company's direction. The people who attend are brilliant, driven, essential to what we've built, but many of them have forgotten what it means to serve. They need to be reminded. And you think I can remind them? Imani asked skeptically. I know you can. Just by being who you are. He reached across the table, his hand covering hers. Imani, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have explained that first night, when I said those words that confused you. Her heart quickened. You're mine. Yes. His expression grew serious. I saw you once before, years ago, before any of this. He gestured to indicate his success, his wealth. Before I had anything but determination and empty pockets. Imani frowned in confusion. I don't understand. When? Where? At Lena's diner, in Liberty City. You probably don't remember. It was just a moment. His voice softened with the memory. I was 22, had just lost my first attempt at a business. Everything I'd scraped together for 2 years, gone. I was sitting at the counter, trying to make a $5 meal last as long as possible because I had nowhere else to go. A shadow of old pain crossed his face. The other customers were laughing, having a good Friday night. The waitress kept giving me these impatient looks, like she knew I couldn't afford to leave a proper tip. I felt invisible, less than nothing. Imani listened, trying to recall the diner he mentioned. She'd worked at several such places over the years, trying to make ends meet. And then you walked in, Roman continued. You were with a friend, both of you dressed up for a night out. Beautiful. You sat at the counter a few seats down from me. His eyes held hers, willing her to remember. The waitress ignored me when I tried to get a water refill. But you noticed. You slid your own water glass toward me and smiled. Just a simple, kind smile. Then you said, here, looks like you could use this more than me. A faint memory stirred in Imani's mind. A skinny young man with hungry eyes and worn clothes, sitting alone while everyone around him celebrated. That was you? She whispered. Roman nodded. That small kindness, from someone who had no reason to notice me, it stayed with me. Through all the years of building, fighting, clawing my way up, whenever the world tried to make me cold or cruel, I remembered that there are people who see others as human, regardless of their status. He squeezed her hand gently. When I saw you again, at that gala, I knew instantly, the same grace, the same quiet dignity. It took everything I had not to tell you the whole story right then. So that's what you meant, Imani said softly. When you said, you're mine. Yes, not as a possession, not as something to own. His voice grew rough with emotion, but as the person who showed me kindness when I needed it most, the person who saw me when I was invisible. Tears pricked at Imani's eyes. All this time, she'd been guarding against a man who might see her as less than equal. She never imagined he might see her as the one who had once elevated him. Why didn't you tell me this before? She asked. Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought it was just a line, a story to break down your defenses? His smile was sad. I needed you to know me first, to see who I am now, not just the desperate boy you helped years ago. The revelation shifted everything between them. What Imani had feared might be charity or fascination was something much deeper, a connection forged in a moment of human recognition, then rediscovered against impossible odds. As they walked along the shore afterward, Roman's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining naturally. For once, Imani didn't pull away. "I have a confession," she said. "I've been waiting for the other shoe to drop, for you to reveal some ulterior motive or lose interest once the chase was over." Roman stopped, turning to face her. "I know, and I understand why. The world has taught you that people with power want things from you, but Imani, the only thing I want is your trust. Everything else," he gestured between them, "can grow in its own time if that's what you want too." For the first time since they'd met, Imani allowed herself to fully consider the possibility of a future with this man, not as patron and protege, not as employer and employee, but as equals who recognize something valuable in each other. "I think," she said carefully, "that I would like to see where this could go, slowly." The smile that lit his face was worth every moment of uncertainty she'd endured. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "Slowly sounds perfect." The weeks leading up to the retreat flew by in a whirlwind of planning. Imani threw herself into creating an experience that would honor both Roman's vision and the executive's needs. She visited the estate twice more, each time growing more comfortable in the space Roman considered his true home. Their relationship deepened with each meeting. Roman began to share more about his business challenges, seeking her perspective on decisions that would affect thousands of employees. Imani found herself opening up about her own dreams, including her long-held desire to create opportunities for foster youth aging out of the system. "You should start a foundation," Roman suggested one evening as they reviewed retreat plans on his terrace. "The hotel group could partner with it, create internship pathways, housing support." "That's a huge undertaking," Imani said, surprised by the suggestion. "So was building a hotel empire," he replied with a smile. "And you have something I didn't when I started. Someone who believes in you completely." The easy confidence he had in her abilities was both thrilling and terrifying. No one had ever seen such potential in her before. 3 days before the retreat was scheduled to begin, Imani was working late at the Palmetto when her phone rang. It was Tasha, her voice tight with panic. "Imani, I think someone broke into our apartment. The door was open when I got home from class and things are messed up inside. Are you safe? Get out of there right now," Imani said, already grabbing her purse. "Go to the coffee shop on the corner. I'm on my way." "I'm outside already," Tasha assured her. "But Imani, there's something else." There was a note on the door. It said, "Ask your boyfriend about Olivia Chambers." Imani froze. "What? Who's Olivia Chambers?" Tasha asked. "And how does someone know about you and Roman?" "I don't know," Imani said honestly. "Stay where you are. I'll be there in 20 minutes. As she drove to meet Tasha, Imani's mind raced. Who would break into their apartment just to leave a cryptic message? And who was Olivia Chambers? Tasha was waiting at the coffee shop, visibly shaken. After making sure her cousin was unharmed, Imani called the police, who met them at the apartment. Nothing valuable had been stolen, which only confirmed Imani's suspicion that the break-in had been about sending a message, not theft. After the police left, promising to patrol the area more frequently, Imani and Tasha gathered essential items and checked into a hotel for the night. Imani didn't call Roman. Something held her back, a seed of doubt planted by that mysterious name. The next morning, while Tasha was in the shower, Imani did something she'd never done before. She searched Roman's name online, adding Olivia Chambers to the query. The results made her blood run cold. Dozens of Society page articles and photos appeared, showing Roman with a stunning blonde woman, Olivia Chambers, daughter of real estate mogul Edward Chambers, graduate of Yale Law School, philanthropist, and, according to multiple sources, Roman's former fiancée. Their engagement had been announced 3 years ago with great fanfare, uniting two of Miami's most powerful families. Then, 6 months later, a terse announcement of their separation. No reasons given, no comments from either party. Imani stared at the photos of Roman and Olivia, at charity galas, yacht parties, and exclusive restaurant openings. They looked perfect together, both beautiful, wealthy, part of the same world, the kind of couple people expected. Why had Roman never mentioned her? In all their conversations about past relationships, past struggles, past triumphs, not once had he mentioned being engaged to one of Miami's social elite. A text from Roman interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Final retreat prep today. Can't wait to see you at the estate tomorrow. Everything okay after our call got cut off last night? Imani hadn't even told him about the break-in. She'd been too shaken, too confused by the message left for her. Fine, just busy. See you tomorrow, she texted back, the brief response so unlike their usual warm exchanges. She spent the day helping Tasha move into a campus apartment temporarily, arranging for their own apartment's locks to be changed, and trying to focus on final preparations for the retreat. But the images of Roman and Olivia haunted her, along with the question of who would want her to know about this relationship and why. The next morning, Imani drove to Roman's estate with a heart full of conflicting emotions. The security guard at the gate recognized her immediately, waving her through with a friendly smile. As she parked near the main house, she saw Roman waiting for her on the front steps, his face lighting up at the sight of her car. "You're here early," he said, coming to meet her. He leaned in to kiss her cheek, but Imani turned slightly, causing his lips to brush her hair instead. If he noticed the subtle rejection, he didn't comment on it. "I wanted to do a final walkthrough before your team arrives," she said, her voice carefully professional. Roman studied her face, concern evident in his eyes. "Is everything all right? You seem distant." "Everything's fine," Imani lied, moving past him toward the house. "Just focused on making sure the retreat goes perfectly." Throughout the morning, Imani maintained her professional demeanor, reviewing last-minute details with the estate staff while avoiding being alone with Roman. If he was confused by her sudden coolness, he respected her space enough not to push. By noon, the first executives began to arrive, men and women in casual but expensive attire, clearly comfortable in their status as Roman's inner circle. Imani greeted them warmly, escorted them to their rooms and ensured they had everything they needed. The afternoon session went smoothly, with Roman leading a discussion about the company's 5-year vision. Imani moved quietly around the edges of the group, making sure water glasses stayed full and technology worked flawlessly. It felt uncomfortably like being back in server mode, invisible, except when needed. As the executives broke for pre-dinner cocktails on the terrace, Imani slipped away to check on the dining preparations. She was inspecting the table settings when she sensed someone behind her. The infamous Imani Rhodes. "I've been so curious to meet you." Imani turned to find herself face to face with a stunning blonde woman in white linen pants and a silk blouse. Though they'd never met, Imani recognized her instantly from the photos she'd seen online. Olivia Chambers. "Ms. Chambers," Imani acknowledged, fighting to keep her voice steady. "I wasn't aware you were attending the retreat." Olivia's laugh was musical, but held no warmth. "Oh, I'm not part of the official guest list. Let's call it a surprise visit." She moved around the table, trailing manicured fingers along the back of a chair. "My father and Roman are discussing a potential partnership. I thought I'd deliver the proposal personally." The implication in her tone was clear. This wasn't just about business. "I see," Imani said carefully. "Well, dinner will be served in 30 minutes. If you'll excuse me, I need to check on a few things." "Of course," Olivia replied with a practiced smile. "We wouldn't want to keep Roman waiting. He can be so impatient when he wants something." Before Imani could respond, Roman himself appeared in the doorway, his expression darkening when he saw Olivia. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice cold in a way Imani had never heard before. Olivia's smile didn't falter. "Daddy sent me with the Singapore proposal, the one you've been pushing for." She stepped closer to him, placing a hand on his arm. "We thought a personal touch might help seal the deal." Roman removed her hand firmly. "You should have called first. We're in the middle of a leadership retreat." "Yes, I can see that." Olivia's gaze slid to Imani, assessing and dismissive in one glance. "Your new event coordinator seems very efficient, though I have to say it's quite the career change from serving champagne, isn't it?" The deliberate insult hung in the air. Roman's jaw tightened dangerously. "Olivia, enough," he said quietly. "Leave the proposal with my assistant. I'll review it tomorrow." "But I've come all this way," she pouted. "Surely you can spare a few minutes for an old friend." The tension between them was palpable. Imani stepped back, feeling like an intruder in a scene with a long, complicated history. "I should check on the kitchen," she murmured, moving toward the door. "Imani, wait," Roman called. But she was already gone, needing space to process the confrontation she'd just witnessed. In the kitchen, she threw herself into coordinating the dinner service, grateful for the distraction of work. Through the windows, she could see Roman and Olivia in intense conversation on a far corner of the terrace, well away from the other executives. 20 minutes later, as servers began carrying the first course out to the dining room, Roman appeared at the kitchen door, his expression troubled. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. "Please." Imani nodded stiffly, following him to his private study off the main hall. The room was warm and masculine, with bookshelves lining the walls and a large desk facing windows that overlooked the ocean. "I'm sorry about that," he said once the door was closed. "Olivia shouldn't have come here unannounced, and she certainly shouldn't have spoken to you that way." "Is that all you're sorry for?" Imani asked, finally letting her hurt show. "Or are you also sorry for never mentioning that you were engaged to her?" Roman's eyes widened in surprise. "How did you—" "Someone broke into my apartment 2 days ago," Imani interrupted. "They left a message telling me to ask you about Olivia Chambers, so I did my research." Roman sank into a chair, looking genuinely shocked. "Your apartment was broken into? Are you and Tasha all right?" "We're fine," Imani said dismissively. "That's not the point. The point is that you've been hiding a significant part of your past from me. We've talked for hours about our lives, our struggles, our relationships, and you never once mentioned being engaged to one of Miami's social elite. Because it wasn't real," Roman said quietly. "Not in the way that matters." "What does that mean?" He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. "My relationship with Olivia was strategic. Her father controlled properties I needed for expansion. An engagement opened doors that would have remained closed to me otherwise." The admission stunned Imani. "You got engaged as a business move?" "It wasn't that cold-blooded. We dated for a year first. I genuinely tried to make it work." His eyes met hers, filled with regret. "But Olivia wanted the Roman Devereux the world sees, the ruthless businessman, the social trophy. When she realized there were parts of me I would never share with her, parts I kept protected, she lost interest." "And what parts were those?" Imani asked, still hurting but needing to understand. "The real ones," he said simply. "My background, my mother, the years of struggle. Olivia found those stories embarrassing, not inspiring. She wanted me to reinvent myself completely, to pretend I'd always belonged in her world." He stood and moved closer to Imani, though he didn't touch her. "I didn't tell you about Olivia, because that engagement represented everything I dislike about the life success has forced me to live. The compromises, the performances, the strategic relationships. It wasn't something I was proud of." "But you still need her father's properties," Imani said, putting the pieces together. "That's why she's here with a proposal." Roman nodded. "Edward Chambers controls 3 key locations for our Asian expansion, locations we've been negotiating over for years." "And does Olivia think there's still a chance for the 2 of you?" Imani asked, the real question behind her hurt finally emerging. Roman's expression softened. "Olivia thinks of relationships as business arrangements, to be formed and dissolved based on mutual benefit. Right now she sees an opportunity to reconnect with a man whose star has risen even higher since our separation." "That doesn't answer my question." "No, Imani. There is no chance for Olivia and me. None." His voice was firm with conviction. "What I feel for you is something I never felt for her, something I wasn't sure I was capable of feeling for anyone." The raw honesty in his voice began to melt the ice around Imani's heart. But one question remained. Who would break into my apartment just to tell me about her? Who even knows about us? Roman's expression darkened. "I don't know, but I intend to find out." He reached for her hand cautiously. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you about Olivia. It was wrong to keep that from you, regardless of my reasons." Imani allowed him to take her hand, still troubled but no longer frozen with hurt. "No more secrets, Roman. If we're going to have any chance, I need to know I can trust you completely." "No more secrets," he agreed solemnly. "Starting now." A discreet knock at the door reminded them both of the retreat still in progress, the executives waiting for dinner, the professional obligations that couldn't be ignored. "We should get back," Imani said reluctantly. Roman nodded but didn't release her hand. "We'll finish this conversation later. And Imani, I'm having security stationed at your new apartment tonight. No arguments. Not until we know who's behind the break-in." She didn't have the energy to protest. The truth was the incident had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of professional duties. Olivia stayed for dinner, seated far from Roman, but making her presence felt with knowing glances and inside jokes with the executives who had known her during the engagement. Imani maintained her composure, directing the service with quiet authority while avoiding Olivia's calculating gaze. After dinner, as the executives moved to the library for brandy, Imani overheard Olivia speaking to Roman in a quiet corner. "She's quite the little project, isn't she?" Olivia was saying, very earnest. "Very determined to rise above her station. Is that the appeal? Playing Professor Higgins to her Eliza Doolittle?" "That's enough, Olivia." Roman's voice was quiet but dangerous. "You're here as a courtesy to your father. Don't push it." "Oh, darling, we both know how this ends. You'll enjoy playing with your fascinating charity case until reality sets in. The board, the investors, the social obligations, they require a certain type of partner. One who understands the world you actually live in, not the fantasy you're creating with her." Imani didn't stay to hear Roman's response. She slipped away to the kitchen, her cheeks burning with humiliation. Olivia's words had given voice to her deepest fears, that she was just a temporary fascination for Roman, a refreshing change from women like Olivia, who would eventually bore him. Later that night, after the executives had retired to their rooms and the house had grown quiet, Imani sat alone on the small dock where she and Roman had shared lunch weeks earlier. The moon cast a silver path across the water, peaceful and indifferent to human dramas. She heard his footsteps on the wooden planks but didn't turn around. "I've been looking for you," Roman said, sitting beside her on the bench at the end of the dock. "Are you all right?" "I heard what Olivia said," Imani admitted, "about me being a charity case, a project." Roman sighed heavily. "Olivia sees relationships as transactions. She can't understand anything else." "But what if she's right?" Imani turned to face him, moonlight illuminating the vulnerability in her eyes. "What if this is just temporary? What happens when your board members start questioning why you're with someone like me instead of someone who can advance your business interests?" "Someone like you," Roman repeated, his voice tight with emotion. "You mean someone brilliant, compassionate, and strong enough to build a life from nothing? Someone who sees people for who they are, not what they own?" He took her hands in his. "Imani, I spent years trying to belong in Olivia's world, changing how I spoke, what I revealed about myself, who I appeared to be. It nearly hollowed me out completely." His grip tightened. "With you, for the first time since my mother died, I can be fully myself. That's not temporary. That's salvation." The raw honesty in his voice silenced her doubts, at least for the moment. Roman reached up to touch her cheek gently. "I meant what I said earlier. No more secrets between us." His eyes held hers in the moonlight, including the most important one. "Which is that I'm in love with you," he said simply. "Not because you once showed kindness to a desperate boy, not because you challenge me or understand parts of me others don't see, but because of who you are, Imani Rhodes. Because of the woman you've become despite everything life has thrown at you." The words hung in the night air between them, irrevocable and transformative. Imani felt tears fill her eyes, overwhelmed by the certainty in his voice, the openness of his expression. "I love you too," she whispered, the admission both terrifying and freeing. "And that scares me more than anything." Roman smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Being scared together is better than being fearless alone." Then he kissed her. Not the careful, gentle kisses they had shared before, but a kiss full of passion and promise. Imani felt the last of her reserves crumbling as she kissed him back, finally allowing herself to believe that this unlikely connection might be real and lasting. When they eventually pulled apart, Roman rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me tonight," he whispered. "Just to sleep. I don't want to be away from you right now." Imani nodded, no longer fighting the pull between them. Hand in hand, they walked back to the house under the stars, both aware that whatever happened next, there was no going back to who they had been before. In Roman's suite, a warm, wood-paneled sanctuary with windows that opened to the sound of the waves, they lay together on his bed, still fully clothed, simply holding each other in the quiet darkness. "Tomorrow," Roman murmured against her hair, "we'll figure out who broke into your apartment. We'll deal with Olivia and her father's proposal. We'll face whatever comes next. Together," Imani added, her head resting on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Together," he agreed, his arms tightening around her. As she drifted toward sleep, Imani allowed herself to believe, just for this moment, that perhaps some fairy tales could come true, that sometimes the invisible girl and the lonely boy might find each other against impossible odds and build something real from the ruins of their pasts. But a small voice in the back of her mind whispered a warning. Nothing this perfect comes without a price, and sooner or later, someone would demand payment in full. Morning arrived with golden light streaming through the windows of Roman's suite. Imani woke slowly, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings before remembering where she was and who held her in his arms. Roman was still asleep, his face relaxed and younger looking without the careful control he maintained while awake. She studied him in the soft light, the strong line of his jaw, the slight furrow between his brows that remained even in sleep, the faint scar near his hairline that she'd never noticed before. This close she could see the tiny imperfections that made him human rather than the flawless icon the business world knew. As if sensing her gaze, Roman's eyes opened, dark and warm with sleep. "Good morning," he murmured, his voice rough. "Did you sleep?" "Better than I have in weeks," Imani admitted, suddenly shy despite the intimacy of waking in his arms. He brushed a stray curl from her face, his touch gentle. "I've imagined this, waking up with you." The simple admission made her heart flutter. Before she could respond, a discreet knock sounded at the door. "Mr. Devereux?" It was Mrs. Hernandez, the housekeeper. "The security team is here with their report, and breakfast will be served for the executives in 30 minutes. Reality crashed back into their peaceful moment. They were still in the middle of a corporate retreat, with 20 executives expecting leadership and professionalism from both of them. "I need to get back to my room," Imani said, sitting up reluctantly. "I can't let them see me leaving your suite wearing yesterday's clothes." Roman nodded, understanding the importance of maintaining her professional reputation. "Use the private staircase through my office. It leads directly to the east wing. No one will see you." As she quickly gathered her things, Roman called through the door, "Tell the security team I'll meet them in my study in 15 minutes. After a brief, tender kiss, Imani slipped away through the hidden passage Roman had shown her. As the door closed between them, she leaned against the wall for a moment, trying to process everything that had happened. In less than 24 hours, she'd discovered Roman's hidden engagement, confronted him about his secrets, confessed her love, and spent the night in his arms. And somewhere out there, someone had broken into her apartment specifically to drive a wedge between them. When she emerged from her room 30 minutes later, freshly showered and dressed in the professional attire she'd packed for the retreat, Imani found the executives already gathered on the terrace for breakfast. Roman stood among them, once again the composed business leader in perfectly tailored casual clothes, no trace of the vulnerable man who had held her through the night. Their eyes met briefly across the space, a current of understanding passing between them before they both resumed their professional roles. The morning session went smoothly, with Roman leading discussions about expanding the Devereux Group's charitable initiatives. Imani noticed how passionately he spoke about creating opportunities for disadvantaged youth, programs that reflected his own journey from poverty to success. During the lunch break, as the executives networked in small groups, Roman pulled Imani aside into his study. "Security has a lead on who broke into your apartment," he said without preamble, his expression grave. "The building's surveillance cameras caught someone in a maintenance uniform who doesn't work for the complex. They've enhanced the image." He handed her a tablet showing a freeze frame from security footage. The figure's face was partially obscured by a cap, but Imani recognized him immediately. "That's Derek Wilson," she said, shocked. "He's Caroline Whitmore's personal assistant. I served them both at several events before the incident at your hotel." Roman's jaw tightened. "Caroline Whitmore, the woman who falsely accused you of theft. But why would she have someone break into my apartment? And how would she know about us?" "Caroline moves in the same social circles as Olivia," Roman said, his voice cold with anger. "They're not friends, but they communicate. After I humiliated Caroline publicly, she'd be looking for revenge. And Olivia gave her the ammunition," Imani concluded, the pieces falling into place. "By telling her about your interest in me." "It appears so." Roman ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I've already called in a favor with a detective at Miami PD. They'll be questioning Derek Wilson today." Imani sank into a chair, overwhelmed by the revelation. "These people, they're playing games with our lives like it's nothing, just because they can." Roman knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. "This is my fault. I exposed you to this world without fully protecting you." "No," Imani said firmly. "I'm not a child who needs protection. I just need to understand what we're up against." She squeezed his hands. "No more surprises, remember?" "No more surprises," he agreed, pressing a kiss to her palm. A knock at the door forced them apart, once again. It was Thomas Erickson, Roman's longtime friend and Imani's boss at the Palmetto. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, glancing between them with knowing eyes, "but Olivia Chambers is back. She's insisting on speaking with you, Roman. Says it's about her father's Singapore deal. Roman's expression hardened. Tell her I'll meet her in the front parlor in 5 minutes. After Thomas left, Roman turned back to Imani. I need to end this situation with Olivia once and for all. Would you come with me? The request surprised her. Are you sure that's wise? Won't it just antagonize her more? Probably, he admitted. But I'm done with the games and the secrets. If Olivia wants to discuss business, she can do it with both of us present. The boldness of the gesture, the public claiming of their relationship it represented, both thrilled and terrified Imani. But she nodded her agreement. Whatever was coming, they would face it together. Olivia was waiting in the elegant front parlor, dressed in a pristine white sundress that emphasized her golden tan and platinum hair. Her smile froze when she saw Imani enter alongside Roman. I wasn't aware this was a group meeting, she said coolly. Imani stays, Roman replied, his tone brooking no argument. Now what's so urgent about your father's proposal that you needed to return during a private corporate retreat? Olivia's gaze shifted between them, calculation evident in her blue eyes. Daddy has revised his offer. The terms are more favorable now. Exclusive development rights for the Singapore properties, plus his backing with the Asian investors who've been hesitant about the Devereux brand. She crossed the room to stand directly in front of Roman, deliberately turning her back on Imani. It's the deal you've been wanting for 3 years, Roman. The final piece for your global expansion. And what does your father want in return? Roman asked, his voice neutral but his eyes watchful. Olivia smiled, a practiced expression that didn't reach her eyes. Just a few small concessions, shared branding on the properties, a seat on your board for Daddy. She paused meaningfully. And a rekindling of our personal relationship. Roman didn't flinch. I'm not interested in rekindling anything with you, Olivia. If your father's offer comes with that condition, then we have nothing further to discuss. Olivia's composure slipped for a moment, her eyes flashing with anger before she regained control. Don't be hasty, darling. This is business, not emotion. We made a good team once. We understood each other's worlds. Her gaze flicked dismissively toward Imani. Can you really say the same about your current fascination? My relationship with Imani isn't up for discussion, Roman said firmly. If your father wants to negotiate a straightforward business deal, have him call my office directly. Otherwise, I think we're done here. Olivia's perfect features hardened into a mask of cold fury. You're making a mistake, Roman. The board won't approve of this inappropriate connection. Neither will your investors. Do you really think they want their billions managed by a man who's thinking with his... That's enough, Roman interrupted, his voice quiet but dangerous. You've said what you came to say. Now I'll say what needs to be said. I'm not the desperate outsider you knew 3 years ago, willing to compromise myself for access to your father's world. I don't need Edward's properties or his connections anymore. He moved to stand beside Imani, his shoulder brushing hers in a subtle show of unity. What I need, what I want, is standing right here. And if that costs me some business opportunities, so be it. Olivia's laugh was brittle. How romantic, and how utterly naive. You think love conquers all? Wait until the society pages get hold of this story. Wait until your shareholders start questioning your judgment. Is that a threat? Imani asked, speaking for the first time since entering the room. Olivia's cold gaze shifted to her. It's a reality check, honey. Roman may be playing Prince Charming now, but the real world isn't a fairy tale. People like us don't end up with people like you. Not permanently. People like me, Imani repeated, her voice steady despite the anger building inside her. You mean people with integrity? People who value others for their character, not their bank accounts? You're right. Roman doesn't belong with someone like you anymore. He's outgrown that empty world. Olivia's perfect face flushed with rage. You have no idea who he really is. The things he's done to build his precious empire, the people he's stepped on, the deals he's made in the dark. She turned back to Roman. Does she know about Victor Martinez? About the Atlantic City acquisition? Does she know how cutthroat you can be when you want something badly enough? Roman remained impassive, but Imani felt him tense beside her. My business decisions aren't relevant to this conversation, he said coldly. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a retreat to run. This isn't over, Olivia warned as she gathered her purse. Daddy doesn't take rejection well, neither do I. After she swept out of the room, a heavy silence fell between Roman and Imani. What was she talking about? Imani asked quietly. Victor Martinez, Atlantic City? Roman sighed, the weight of old decisions evident in his expression. Business rivalries from years ago. Not my proudest moments, but nothing illegal or unethical. He met her eyes directly. I promise no more secrets, and I'll tell you everything. But not right now, not in the middle of this retreat. Tonight, after everyone's gone to bed, I'll explain it all. Imani nodded, trusting him enough to wait for the full story. We should get back to the executives. They'll be wondering where we are. As they walked toward the terrace where the retreat participants were gathering for the afternoon session, Roman touched her arm gently. Thank you for standing with me just now. It meant more than you know. Always, Imani replied simply, the single word a promise that surprised even her with its certainty. The afternoon passed in a blur of presentations and discussions. If the executives noticed any tension between Roman and Imani, they were professional enough not to comment on it. By evening, as the group enjoyed a formal dinner under the stars, the incident with Olivia seemed almost like a distant dream. After dinner, as the executives relaxed with drinks around a fire pit on the beach, Roman's phone rang. He stepped away to take the call, returning minutes later with an expression Imani couldn't quite read. That was my detective contact, he said quietly when they had a moment alone. They questioned Derek Wilson. He admitted breaking into your apartment on Caroline Whitmore's orders. She apparently paid him $5,000 to plant that message about Olivia. So it was revenge, Imani said, relieved that at least this mystery had been solved. Partly, Roman agreed, but there's more. Caroline only knew about us because Olivia told her, and Olivia knew because she's had me under surveillance for months. Imani stared at him in shock. What? Why? Because her father wanted ammunition to force me into their Singapore deal. Roman's expression darkened. They've been gathering information, waiting for the right moment to approach me. Our relationship gave them leverage they thought they could use. The calculated coldness of it made Imani's skin crawl. These people are toxic, Roman. Yes, he agreed grimly. And they've been part of my world for years. I'm sorry you've been dragged into their games. Before Imani could respond, Thomas approached them with a concerned expression. Roman, there's a situation developing online. You both need to see this. He handed Roman his tablet, open to a society gossip site. The headline made Imani's blood run cold. Devereux's secret affair with former server threatens hotel empire. Below the sensationalized headline were photos. Imani entering Roman's estate, the two of them walking on the beach, even a grainy, long-distance shot of them embracing on his terrace. The article quoted sources close to the billionaire, claiming that Roman's judgment was being questioned by board members concerned about his inappropriate relationship with a former employee of much lower social standing. Olivia wasted no time, Roman said, his voice tight with anger as he scrolled through the article. This is her revenge for being rejected. Imani felt lightheaded as she read the descriptions of herself. Ambitious former waitress, social climber, using her position to get close to one of Miami's most eligible bachelors. Her entire identity reduced to crude stereotypes and innuendo. It's already being picked up by other outlets, Thomas said grimly. My phone's been blowing up with calls from reporters asking for comment from the Palmetto about our event coordinator's relationship with our main competitor. Imani closed her eyes briefly, imagining how this would affect her new career, her reputation, her ability to be taken seriously in her role. What do we do? Roman's expression was resolute. We fight back, on our terms. He turned to Thomas. Call Angela in PR. Tell her to prepare a statement confirming our relationship, but emphasizing Imani's professional qualifications and the proper timeline of events. Make it clear she was hired at the Palmetto based on merit alone, with my recommendation coming after her outstanding performance at elite occasions. And what about the board? Imani asked. Olivia said they wouldn't approve. Let me worry about the board, Roman said firmly. Most of them owe their fortunes to following my business instincts. They'll fall in line once they realize this changes nothing about how I run my company. Despite his confidence, Imani sensed the gravity of the situation. This public exposure changed everything, bringing their private connection into the harsh spotlight of public opinion and corporate politics. I should go back to Miami, she said suddenly. My presence here is just adding fuel to the fire. You need to focus on damage control with your executives. Running away is exactly what Olivia wants, Roman argued. It would make it look like we have something to hide, like our relationship is something shameful. It's not about shame, Imani insisted. It's about being practical. Your company has to come first right now. No, Roman said firmly, surprising both Imani and Thomas with his vehemence. You come first. The company will survive this little scandal, but I won't sacrifice what we're building together for the sake of appearances. The certainty in his voice left no room for argument. Before Imani could respond, one of the executives approached, his expression uncomfortable. "Roman, the team is asking about the article. It's spreading across everyone's phones." Roman nodded grimly. "Tell them I'll address it directly. Everyone in the main room in 15 minutes. After the executive left, Roman turned back to Imani. "I need to speak to them honestly. Will you stand with me?" The request was both a practical need and a symbolic gesture. By appearing beside him, Imani would be claiming her place in his life publicly, for better or worse. "Yes," she said after a moment's consideration. "I'll stand with you." 15 minutes later, all 20 executives had gathered in the main living room of the estate. The atmosphere was tense, with sidelong glances and whispered conversations stopping abruptly when Roman and Imani entered the room together. Roman moved to the center of the group, his posture straight and confident. Imani stood slightly to his side, maintaining her professional demeanor despite the anxiety churning inside her. "I'm sure you've all seen the article that's circulating," Roman began without preamble. "Rather than let rumors and speculation distract us from the important work of this retreat, I want to address it directly." He glanced at Imani, a brief look of reassurance before continuing. "Imani Rhodes and I are in a relationship. It began after she had already secured her position at the Palmetto through her own merit and Thomas Erickson's excellent judgment." One of the older executives, a man named Gerald Wilson, who had been with the company since its early days, spoke up. "Roman, no one here questions your personal choices, but the board will have concerns about the timing, the appearance of impropriety." "The board's concerns are noted," Roman replied coolly, "but let me be clear, there was no impropriety. Imani was not my employee when our relationship began. She works for our competitor, a fact that Thomas has been gracious enough to accommodate for this retreat." Another executive, a sharp-featured woman in her 40s, asked the question Imani had been dreading. "What about Olivia Chambers? The article mentions your previous engagement and suggests this current relationship might jeopardize the Singapore deal with her father." Roman's expression remained impassive. "My personal relationship with Olivia ended 3 years ago by mutual agreement. Any business arrangements with Edward Chambers will be evaluated on their merits alone, without personal entanglements." He surveyed the room, meeting each executive's gaze directly. "I've built this company from nothing by trusting my instincts and staying true to my principles. Those principles include loyalty to the people who matter, honesty in all dealings, and refusing to be manipulated by those who would use personal leverage for business advantage." His hand found Imani's, a public claiming that sent a clear message to everyone present. "Imani Rhodes is not a distraction or a liability to this company. She is an extraordinary woman whose intelligence and integrity have earned my deepest respect and love. Anyone who has a problem with that is welcome to explore opportunities elsewhere." The room fell silent at the uncharacteristically personal declaration from a man known for his reserved public persona. Then Thomas stepped forward, raising his glass. "To Roman and Imani," he said simply, "may your happiness continue to flourish regardless of what the gossip columns say." One by one, the executives raised their glasses in support, some with genuine warmth, others with professional courtesy. The tension in the room gradually dissipated as conversations resumed, the immediate crisis diffused by Roman's direct approach. Later, as the executives returned to the beach for a nightcap, Roman pulled Imani into a quiet corner of the garden. "Are you all right?" he asked, his composed public mask falling away to reveal genuine concern. "I know this isn't what you signed up for." Imani leaned against him, drawing strength from his solid presence. "I'm processing. It's a lot to take in. Having my life dissected in gossip columns, being judged by people who don't even know me. I'm sorry," he said softly. "If I could shield you from this, I would." "I know." She looked up at him, her expression resolute. "But I don't want to be shielded. I want to stand on my own feet, face whatever comes next with clear eyes. That's the only way I'll know if I'm strong enough for this life, for us." Roman studied her face in the garden's soft lighting. "You're the strongest person I've ever known, Imani. Stronger than me in many ways." "We're strong in different ways," she corrected gently. "That's why we work." He smiled, the private smile that transformed his features and revealed the man behind the billionaire facade. "Yes, that's exactly why we work." The moment was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. Gerald Wilson, the senior executive who had questioned Roman earlier, appeared on the garden path. "Excuse the intrusion," he said formally. "Roman, I wanted a private word before tomorrow's session." Roman nodded. Of course. Imani, would you excuse us? Actually, Gerald said, surprising them both, I was hoping to speak with both of you. Curious, Imani remained as Gerald settled onto a nearby bench, his expression thoughtful. I've been with this company since Roman had just one struggling hotel, he began. I've watched him build something extraordinary through sheer force of will and an uncanny ability to see potential where others see nothing. He looked directly at Imani. That same ability is evident in how he recognized your talents, Ms. Rhodes. I've watched you during this retreat. Your professionalism, your attention to detail, your natural gift for anticipating needs. You're exceptional at what you do. The unexpected praise caught Imani off guard. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Gerald, please. He turned back to Roman. The board will have questions, concerns. Chambers will use his influence to create obstacles. But you should know that those of us who've been with you from the beginning, we stand with you, both of you. The senior executive's support clearly moved Roman. Thank you, Gerald. That means more than you know. After Gerald departed, Roman and Imani walked hand in hand toward the private dock that had become their special place. The night was clear, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on black velvet. What happens now? Imani asked as they sat at the end of the dock, the gentle sound of waves lapping against the wood beneath them. Now, Roman said, we live our lives on our own terms. The story will die down eventually. Some new scandal will take its place. And we'll still be here, still building whatever this is between us. And Olivia, Caroline, the board, they'll all adjust to the new reality. His confidence was unwavering. I didn't get where I am by letting others dictate my choices. Imani rested her head on his shoulder, allowing herself to believe in his certainty. You promised to tell me about Victor Martinez and Atlantic City, what Olivia mentioned. Roman sighed, his body tensing slightly. Yes, I did. He was quiet for a moment, organizing his thoughts. Victor Martinez was my main competitor when I was expanding to the Caribbean 7 years ago. He owned a chain of small luxury resorts I wanted to acquire. He refused to sell. What happened? I discovered his resorts were violating local environmental regulations, dumping waste into protected waters. Roman's voice was carefully neutral. I could have warned him privately, given him a chance to correct the problems before the authorities found out. Instead, I reported the violations and then bought the properties at a fraction of their value after his company was fined into near bankruptcy. Imani absorbed this, trying to reconcile it with the man she knew. And Atlantic City? A similar situation. I outmaneuvered a family-owned hotel group that had been operating there for generations. Used my political connections to block their expansion plans while fast-tracking my own. His expression was troubled in the moonlight. They eventually sold to me at a loss. The patriarch had a heart attack the following week. Did you break any laws? Imani asked quietly. No, everything was technically legal. He turned to face her directly. But they weren't my proudest moments. I was hungry then, determined to prove myself in an industry that saw me as an outsider. I told myself, the end justified the means. And now I know better, he said simply. Success means nothing if you destroy yourself to achieve it. My mother taught me that, though it took me years to truly understand it. Imani considered his admissions carefully. The calculated ruthlessness Olivia had hinted at was real, a part of the complex man beside her, though not the whole truth of him. Thank you for telling me, she said finally, for not hiding the harder parts of who you are. Roman studied her face in the moonlight. Does it change how you feel? No, she said honestly. It makes you human, complex, real. She took his hand. I don't need you to be perfect, Roman. I just need you to be truthful. Relief washed over his features. That I can promise. Always. They sat in comfortable silence for a time, watching the moon's reflection dance on the water. Eventually, Roman shifted beside her, reaching into his pocket. There's something I want to give you, he said, a hint of nervousness in his voice that Imani had never heard before. Not because of the article, or Olivia, or any of that drama. I've been carrying this for weeks, waiting for the right moment. He opened his palm to reveal a small worn silver key on a simple chain. This was my mother's, he explained softly. The key to the first real home we ever had, a tiny apartment in Liberty City. She kept it as a reminder of how far we'd come, how hard we'd worked for that small slice of security. He held it out to her, the moonlight glinting off the tarnished metal. After she died, I carried it with me through every step of building my life. It reminded me of what really matters, not the trappings of success, but having a place where you truly belong. Imani's throat tightened with emotion, as she understood the significance of the gesture. "Roman, I want you to have it," he said simply, "because you've given me something I haven't had since I lost her, a sense of home that has nothing to do with buildings or possessions." With gentle hands, he placed the chain around her neck, the key resting against her heart. "No matter what happens next, with the press, with Olivia, with the business, remember that you've already given me the most valuable thing in the world, a place to belong, a place to be seen." Tears filled Imani's eyes as she touched the key. "I'll treasure it always." Roman cupped her face gently, his eyes holding hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Imani Rhodes, you were never just help to me. From that first moment in the diner years ago, you were hope. You were possibility. You were proof that kindness exists in a world that had shown me very little of it." He kissed her then, a kiss that felt like a promise, like a future unfolding before them despite all the obstacles. When they finally broke apart, Imani made a decision that had been forming in her heart for weeks. "Take me to bed," she whispered against his lips. "Not just to sleep this time." Roman drew back slightly, searching her face. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything," she said with quiet certainty. "I love you, Roman Devereux, all of you, the good and the difficult, the light and the shadow. I choose this. I choose us." Under the canopy of stars, with the sound of waves as their witness, Roman took her hand and led her back to the house, not as the billionaire and the server, not as the powerful and the powerless, but as two people who had found in each other the rarest of gifts, the courage to be fully seen and loved anyway. 6 months later, Imani stood on the terrace of Roman's estate. Their estate now, as she had moved in 3 months ago, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. The silver key still hung around her neck, a constant reminder of the journey that had brought them here. So much had changed since that tumultuous retreat. As Roman had predicted, the media frenzy eventually died down, replaced by newer scandals and gossip. The Devereux Group's board had adjusted to the reality of their relationship, especially after Roman threatened to step down if they interfered in his personal life. Even Olivia and her father had retreated to lick their wounds, though Imani harbored no illusions that they had given up entirely. She heard Roman's footsteps behind her before she felt his arms encircle her waist. "Lost in thought?" he asked, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Just reflecting," she replied, leaning back against his chest. "It's been quite a journey." "And it's only beginning," he murmured. "How was your meeting with the foundation board?" Imani smiled, thinking of the new project that had consumed her passion for the past few months. With Roman's support, she had established the Rhodes Foundation, dedicated to helping foster youth transition successfully into adulthood through education, housing support, and job training. "They approved the mentorship program," she said excitedly. "We'll be able to pair 50 foster teens with professionals in their fields of interest by next month." Roman smiled against her hair. "I never doubted it. You're a force of nature when you set your mind to something." She turned in his arms to face him. "Speaking of setting my mind to something, Tasha's graduation is next week. I want you there with me." "I wouldn't miss it," he promised. "I've already cleared my calendar." The easy way he prioritized what mattered to her still took Imani by surprise sometimes. Despite his enormous responsibilities, Roman had become a constant presence in her life, attending family dinners with Tasha, supporting Imani's foundation work, and creating space in his world for the things that gave her joy. "I have something to show you," he said, taking her hand. "It arrived while you were at your meeting." Curious, Imani followed him into his study, where a large envelope lay on his desk. Roman handed it to her with a smile that contained a hint of nervousness. "What is this?" she asked, opening it carefully. Inside was a formal document with the Devereux Group letterhead. As Imani scanned the contents, her eyes widened in shock. "Roman, is this what I think it is?" He nodded, watching her reaction closely. "The deed to Lena's diner in Liberty City. I bought it last month." Imani stared at him in amazement. "The diner where we first met? Where I gave you water?" "The very same." His eyes softened with memory. "It was about to be demolished for a parking structure. I couldn't let that happen." "But why?" she asked, still processing the gesture. Roman took her hands in his. "Because that's where our story began, even if we didn't know it then, and because I have plans for it." He guided her to a set of architectural drawings laid out on a side table. "I want to transform it into a training restaurant for graduates of your foundation program, a place where they can learn the hospitality business from the ground up, develop skills, build confidence. Imani studied the drawings, emotion welling in her throat as she saw how he had preserved the diner's original character while modernizing the facilities. Roman, this is perfect. There's one more thing, he said, his voice taking on a quality she hadn't heard before, a mixture of certainty and vulnerability that made her look up from the drawings. Roman reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Imani's breath caught as he opened it to reveal a ring, not the massive diamond she might have expected from a billionaire, but a simple platinum band holding a single perfect stone that caught the light like a star. "I had this made to match your key," he said softly, indicating the worn silver chain around her neck. Simple, real, enduring. He dropped to one knee before her, still holding the open box. "Imani Rhodes, when you handed me that glass of water years ago, you didn't just quench my thirst. You showed me that kindness can exist without expectation of return, that dignity isn't determined by wealth or status, that seeing someone, truly seeing them, is perhaps the greatest gift one person can give another." Tears filled Imani's eyes as Roman continued, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I love you, not as a memory from the past or a symbol of humility to keep me grounded. I love you for the woman you are today, brilliant, compassionate, uncompromising in your belief that everyone deserves to be treated with respect. I love your strength, your grace, your refusal to be defined by circumstances rather than choices." He took a deep breath. "I want to build a life with you, not as the billionaire and the server, not as the savior and the saved, but as two people who found each other against impossible odds and recognized something essential in each other's souls." He held the ring up, a question and a promise in one small circle of metal. "Will you marry me, Imani? Will you continue this journey with me wherever it leads?" Time seemed to stand still as Imani looked down at this powerful man kneeling before her, not in supplication, but in equality, offering his heart as freely as she had once offered a simple glass of water to a stranger in need. In that moment, all her doubts about their different worlds, all her fears about not belonging in his life, dissolved like morning mist in the sun. What remained was the simple, profound truth that had been growing between them from the start. They belonged together, not despite their differences, but because of them. "Yes," she whispered, her voice growing stronger as certainty filled her. "Yes, Roman, I will marry you." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, then rose to gather her in his arms, Imani felt the last pieces of her heart's protective walls crumble away. This was what it meant to be truly chosen, not as a possession or a project, but as an equal partner in creating something beautiful from the broken places of their pasts. Later that night, as they lay tangled together in the peaceful darkness of their bedroom, Roman traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "What are you thinking?" he asked. Imani smiled, watching the moonlight glint off her new ring. "I'm thinking about how strange life is, how one small moment of kindness can change everything, how the universe sometimes brings people together in the most unexpected ways." Roman pulled her closer. "I don't know if it was fate or chance or some cosmic balance being restored. I just know that finding you again, recognizing you across that crowded room, was the moment my life truly began."